Yeah.
So when you were named director, does that pretty much mean there is no information off basis to you? If you want to look something in the 1940s,
give us if I understand it right, director of
National
Intelligence is over all the other intelligence agencies.
That
so
means
FBI, all that
over
stuff.
FBI, over CIA,
all
over
that,
the
yeah.
NSA, all
Right,
of that.
right.
Yeah.
if you want to find out something from 1940s, I mean, it's all there is
Right.
nothing that you don't get to read.
Yeah. Now you can't be the way intelligence works is it's kind of like anyone that serves in the Navy understands. Is we talk about compartmented intelligence, and no one has access to all of the intelligence at once for a reason. It's just like on a ship, you have compartments, so that if there's a fire on a ship, you can close off that part of the ship. You have damage in that part of the ship, but you don't take down the whole ship. So you can only be read into a certain number of programs at a time, and then you have to be read out of a program and read into another program. But as the director, I had access to more intelligence than anyone, in the government, other than the president, who could be read into any program as well.
Are there things that would freak us out?
Oh, yeah.
Like seriously?
Oh, absolutely.
Like scary?
Absolutely. I mean,
Okay.
they
Can
scare
you give
me,
one?
but
Can you give one?
Yeah, just give us one. Nobody's
One.
watching.
We have like 4 followers.
Actually, I believe you.
That's the. He could smell that out right away.
I know.
So you have stuff that's.
Yeah, there's stuff that concerns me now, and if I go back, will continue to concern me, and it's why when I see things that are, so yeah, absolutely.
So when we see things I'll say this, and I've said it before, my dad was in Strategic Air Command when he was in the Air Force, and so he got involved with a lot of stuff that he could not
talk about.
Sure. And I remember when growing up, him telling us, hey, there's certain things, if I tell you this or I say it to somebody, I'm in big trouble. It's treason, and it's all these kind of things. I could have we have some bad problems. But there was times he would say things like, I remember I'd be like, I'm worried about, this is during the 80s when it's the, Cold War, and we're all kind of, facing off with USSR and all that. And I remember like, oh man, what if this happens? I remember him kind of going, don't worry about it. We got things, and all that. And that's what he would leave it as.
Yeah.
And he would also, I remember him getting a letter now and then that was declassified stuff. He would get stuff and things like that. But it was, I could never imagine, like he talked about, one of his jobs was survey or analyzing the satellite photos of the USSR. And he knew stuff in the USSR. And I remember him joking around going, hey man, I've never been there, and I can probably tell you how to get to any location in the USSR as far as much stuff as we've looked at. So, but he would talk about, I always ask him, is it hard for you to keep this? I mean, do you worry about slipping? Do you worry about saying things like, even in your sleep, and all that stuff? When you and Michelle are sitting there, not talking Bluebell, and do you ever say something like,
I do.
we have silos in Turkey or whatever, something like that?
So you do. You have to be careful about that. I'll often pause when people ask me a question, and I'll pause and think, okay, has that been declassified? If it's not been declassified, how can I talk around it that in a way that I'm not revealing information that is either at the secret level, top secret level, or TSSCI or whatever, and because you don't always know exactly where the lines are on some of that stuff. So I always try and err on the side of caution, but yeah, I mean, absolutely.
He would one thing that he never talked about, but he hinted at, was the Philadelphia experiment with that whole thing, with the whole magnetic making things disappear and all that. And I remember watching or talking about it one time, going, we couldn't do that. And I remember him not saying anything, but like, you'd be surprised of things that have been the experiments we've had, things we've done, and that he would just leave it at that. And so that's where you're like, oh my gosh. So that leads me to Area 51, and I want to know about
aliens
Let's
at some
but
point.
Let's do
it's
this.
funny.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes you laugh, but let's watch this. I mean, it's Fox News, so
Yeah,
it's
legit.
you. So you.
Can you tell us, have unidentified flying objects been seen?
Well, sure. We have lots of reports about what we call unidentified aerial phenomenon. And this actually is a program that's been in place for a few years in terms of a task force that has been there under the National Defense Authorization Act. But as you correctly point out, Maria, there's now a report that will be issued by the Pentagon by the Secretary of Defense and the Director of National Intelligence. I actually wanted to get this information out and declassified before I left office, but we weren't able to get it down into an unclassified format that we could talk about quickly enough. But frankly, there are a lot more sightings than have been made public. Some of those have been declassified. When we talk about sightings, we're talking about objects that have been seen by Navy or Air Force pilots or have been picked up by satellite imagery that frankly engage in actions that are difficult to explain, that movements that are hard to replicate, that we don't have the technology for, or traveling at speeds that exceed the sound barrier without a sonic boom. So in short, things that we are observing that are difficult to explain. And so, there's actually quite a few of those, and I think that information is being gathered and will be put out in a way that the American people can see. We always, when we see these things, Maria, we always look for a plausible explanation. Weather can cause disturbances, visual disturbances. Sometimes we wonder whether or not our adversaries have technologies that are a little bit further down the road than we thought or that we realized. But there are instances where we don't have good explanations for some of the things that we've seen. And, when that information becomes declassified, I'll be able to talk a little bit more about that.
I love that laugh by her at the minute. Like, you're just going to leave it there? Like,
This is it? This is what
I'll
we're doing?
tell you later. So tell us, what do you think about
Well,
UFOs?
I mean, I said
all
everything
said.
I
But I
could
mean,
say.
do you believe, if someone said, do you believe beings from other planets or galaxies have visited this Earth? What would you say? Your opinion.
Yeah, no, I mean, as I said in there, I mean, and this goes really to your question about are there things that concern you? Well, so I mean, one of the things that you're charged with as the Director of National Intelligence is to, inform the President as the principal intelligence advisor and other policymakers of the very best intelligence that we have, so that they can make decisions to keep the American people safe, right? And so it concerns you when you don't have good intelligence or have explanations for things that could cause you concern. And so, I mean, that really kind of goes to the point. And what I do, and I tried to be as transparent as I could there. And will again. I mean, there are things where we just don't have good answers for it. So, is it possible that China or Russia is ahead of us on? So when I say things that we can't explain, is objects that appear to defy the laws of physics, that have capabilities or technologies that we don't have, and we don't think that we are going to have anytime soon. And some of those are based on actual U.S. servicemen that have seen it, but some of it is stuff that we've picked up on radar. Some of it's picked up on satellite. I mean, you're talking about things that appear to have transmedium properties, being able to go sea to air and back easily in a way that we can't replicate. So. So you're looking for explanations, and sometimes you can come up with, okay, well, it's possible that there was nature can do funny things, natural phenomenons can happen, weather can cause certain things, and sometimes we could say, well, it's possible that so and so is ahead of us in this kind of technology or this area, but there's just a whole bunch of things where we don't have an explanation that would explain what was that, and why was it able to do that or appear to be able to do that, and it's not one of our black programs. It's not a black op.
Okay, and that's what I was going to ask.
Where, I mean, it's always possible that there's something that is going on that you're not aware of, but it's not supposed to be, and you can ask. But I made that public. The fact that I was the first one to say that we have a UAP. Which probably people call UFOs, but UAP
Why did they change it?
force.
Because UFO sounds crazy.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know. But we wanted that because we wanted sailors, soldiers, airmen, and Marines to report these things. A lot of people were reporting because they thought people would be think that we're crazy. I saw this and, be like, okay, well, we're not going to put him up in, a $60 million aircraft.
Right.
I mean, and so but at the same time we want answers. And there have been occasions where we do find out that, for instance, hypersonics, the Chinese and Russians were further along than we thought they were, and that's now I can talk about that because it's public, and it should concern you. It should concern everyone if America's adversaries have capabilities and technologies that we don't. Because if someone has capabilities that we don't have a defense for, then we're vulnerable. So that's what it is. But
you even go back to World War II when Hitler's defeated, but they realized that Hitler was on the brink with all the technology with rockets and jets, that things were going to be different if this thing lasted a little longer.
Right.
And I think they were surprised that the advance that he had. So yeah, you can. So when do you know things? Like, people don't know who killed Kennedy officially. We know Oswald did it and all that stuff. Are there things
I
that
just saw a smirk on his face.
I know.
Did you see that?
Uh-huh. Do you know things that
knows it.
are solved, but you can't tell us are things that are solved?
But why?
I think so.
Why could we not know?
Well,
Well,
I would say this. I think on the Kennedy thing, without getting into anything, I mean, one of the reasons I have to be careful is there are consequences, as you see, for disclosing classified information that has not been declassified or can't be taken down to an unclassified level. I do think that the Kennedy. I think that I think that information will come out.
It's supposed to be like 2035 or something.
No, but
was official.
I think there were, again, can't get into certain things, but President Trump considered it and came very, very close to
Yes,
putting
he did.
it out and talked about it.
But then at the last minute did not put some
But then did
out.
not, and there were reasons why, and that's something I just can't talk about.
Right.
but can you say that
I think it could. I think he could revisit that. I think he he certainly would be available to revisit that. And so there are things like that.
So you know probably what happened.
I was going to say,
there.
do you think you know the whole story? Just that's the
I think I do.
Oh wow, that is so cool.